Hey folks, welcome to another Sound Decisions episode here on Passion for Sound. And this time it's part 2 of my interview with Gino and Sherry from Geshelli Labs. If you haven't seen part 1, I'll put a link down below. I'd recommend you go and see that video first because it's going to make the second part make more sense when we're referencing things that were said in part 1. If you've already watched part 1, you'll know that Gino and Sherry are wonderful people that have built Geshelli Labs from the ground up, starting with simple designs built in their own home. In this part of the interview, they go on to talk about things like how they go about getting their products tested and certified to ensure there's no interference when they're using their Perspex cases. They also talk about some of the inputs and outputs, such as why some of the DACs don't have USB, why some of the DACs have inputs on one side, outputs on the other, which for some people causes an issue if it's on a desktop, all sorts of bits and pieces that dive into a little bit more detail than what we touched on in part 1. So I hope you'll enjoy the interview. I'll jump out of the way now and leave you with Gino and Sherry. So let's step away from amps, and
Sure.
I don't know if you've still got any coffee left in that mug, Gino, but you might want to take a sip of it based on what I'm about to ask you. Oh, it's water, is it? Should be something. Should probably be something stronger with the question I'm about to ask you.
That's okay.
See,
whatever you want.
You designed the JNOG based on the AKM AK4493 chip,
Yes.
which I haven't heard it myself for reasons that we're about to cover off. I gather it was very popular though. I've heard some people say very good things about it. So what has been the impact of the AKM factory fire and how are you guys responding to it?
Man, it was bad. That was rough. That was the ultimate end of 2020.
Yeah, I gotta frame this. I gotta frame something for you. So I wake up, it's like 7 in the morning, whatever. I get up, kind of groggy. What's the first thing you do? You grab your cell phone to see, what emails you have from last night or whatever. I look at it and one of our vendors is like, yeah, there was a fire at AKM. I'm like, it's like you think you're dreaming, and I'm like, no way. And I'm like, I get up, I'm like, Sherry, there's a fire at AKM. And you were actually up at that point, already. She just looks at me like, no way. I'm like, yes way. And I think we had just made it through FCC.
We had, and to get a product released is expensive.
Yes.
You have to go through legal and CE and safety and FCC here in the States. And, we being small don't buy in large quantities, and because we do everything ourselves, it's not like we have 1,000, 2,000, thousands of boards made somewhere else that are all there, and you have all your everything is done in house. So we're only going to buy a small lot of parts, and when they sell, we can buy more, and that's kind of how we roll. So at the time, we didn't know the true devastation of the AKM fire. We just knew that So, you immediately jump online and I'm like, Gino, there's no chips left. There's only what we have.
And all the suppliers, like we're frantically, every site we go and everybody would call zero in stock. We're like, what?
Yeah.
Like everybody bought them immediately. Like, I mean, they were all bought up instantly.
Yeah. And they're way bigger than us, so they have access. We get it fifth party, whereas then it was we had to let everybody know what we have is what we have, and he immediately started designing something new
like that night. So I would say this, I didn't mean to cut you off, sir, but it was like, I always say this because we try to think very positively here because, you're small, you run into stuff all the time. You have a pipe break or something where, it's just always a crisis. So this particular crisis, the good thing that came out of it was that we were forced to pivot and start really using our noggin. We really like it was a good thing. Like we always try to turn these things into something that can kind of make us, better and kind of, reach up on the next rung of the ladder type of thing. And, so we sat down and talked about it, and it was, we're going to go ahead and start seeing what other chips are out there, what we can do, we have people emailing us, a zillion emails at that point. How many people email us, hey, I heard there was a fire.
Yeah, we and then of course it spread all over social media. And one of the things that we did well accidentally was he bought thousands of the 4113s.
Yeah, so we had two AKM chips on there. We had a 4113 and a 49, or what am I, wait, 4493. Thank you. Sorry. Too many numbers.
So we had a huge stockpile because at the time they were really cheap. And when things are really cheap and they make a ton of them, bigger companies don't have to worry about buying a bunch. You know, they're always available. So we got a hold of our vendor for our AK vendor and said, okay, we have a zillion of these. We have none of these. What can you do? And he was able to broker a trade. And so
fantastic.
That's how we were ended up being able to do, you know, another release because we got a bunch more. And then, that was positive. That helped a lot with us being able to really develop the new DAC that's coming out because then, you know, we had the capital to be able to do that.
But yeah, that when I hear AKM, every single time to this day, I'm like, oh, yeah, it's like, I think I said it earlier, it's like anxiety.
and it spans across a lot of communities. We recently, you know, I think the camera community right now is having trouble because they, you know, so AKM.
Really? I didn't realize that because I'm heavily into photography as a hobby. But I didn't realize AKM. I'm thankfully at the moment not in the process of buying any gear. I've put that behind me for a little while at least. So I wasn't aware that it had hit cameras as well.
Yeah, they make stuff. They make all kinds. I mean, they make little sensors, all kinds of things. It affected like everything. I mean, you know, we just all see it from the audio, but yeah, they make all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it hurt a lot of other industries besides the audio.
Yeah.
Community. And in this particular case, what's interesting is, like he talked about a burst pipe. That would hurt us. This hurt everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody felt it at the same time. So it was an interesting conundrum for you know, all over the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I did the interview with Jason Stoddard from Shit just after it as well. And I know they had some stock, I believe, and they've been able to continue for a while, but they were hit like everybody was. And no doubt topping workers, they build a lot of theirs around it. So there's lots of manufacturers, big manufacturers, like you said, out there that are suffering as well. I guess, you know, it's sort of a blessing and a curse being a small outfit like yourselves is that you don't buy in bulk, but you're probably more agile than some of those companies in that, like you said, you can turn around and start designing the new approach immediately.
Yeah, and we're real close to release. We're hoping for next month. So, and you're right, we don't have the red tape and all the problems that not problems, but all the red tape. That maybe larger companies.
Yeah, it's nice too having our own production, you know, so we can, you know, basically we just go, we order boards and we can just throw them right into production. So for us, it's a lot of times just you know, obtaining chips. You know, that's always the big fight, you know, so. But yeah, you know, it makes us pivot. It makes it interesting. I like interesting, you know, it makes us, you know, pivot and do our thing and brainstorm and, you know, hey, we get to do something new. You know, that's how I look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's great. That's really good.
You know,
Speaking of DAC designs, and I want to actually, I'll type it in a second when you're talking. I'll type it down. So I am listening. I'm just going to type another question I want to come back to. One of the things I wanted to ask you about in terms of your designs is that some of the DACs, at least in the past, I'm not sure how you're going to go in the future, but some of them have had limited inputs. So you might have not had USB or only had USB and things like that. Has that been driven from a cost point of view? Is it a design? There's a reason you need the only specific inputs on there from a circuit design point of view? What's driven that decision?
I want me to answer that one. I think you've answered that one so many times in the last couple of years. So honestly, so I used to work in USB audio way back. It's like early 2000s. You know, we were doing a lot of work in it. And back then, I mean, you know, I didn't have a ton of faith in kind of, you know, the abilities to stream on USB and this and that. You know, it was like a lot of weird issues we used to run into. So it always left kind of a sour taste in my mouth. And so our first two DACs, it was more just of we couldn't find a decent solution that we liked. And I think you'll probably hear that from other manufacturers in the world too, you know, where they pick their solution, they like their solution, and they're going to stand by it, and, you know, God bless them, it works great, you know. So, I mean, believe me, this is my answer to the whole world about who's always asking us about it, is we've looked at solutions for years, you know, even when we started, and I just wasn't happy. You know, I thought the chips were good, you know, I wasn't happy with how we wanted to integrate the solution in with our design. So, you know, you're trying to put a turbocharger on a car, you know, and it's just not fitting right. You don't like how, you know, maybe the specs on it are a little bit different, you know, and so we knew about Amanero, and we always kind of, you know, we always saw people talking about them. And, you know, we knew in our next DAC, this was the JNOG, that we wanted to release USB audio, but we weren't going to tell anybody.
Yeah, the market told us we had better.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
we got bombarded.
I fielded so many emails she did in that couple of years about USB that, you know, I understood, you know, we definitely understood that it was a pain in the butt, you know, but the whole time, I mean, I was spending a ton of time. I have so many development boards here for different USB audio manufacturers. I have a stack of them.
Wow.
And
okay.
it came down to, like, you know, the support, like what kind of support can you get on there? You know, maybe do they provide drivers? Some of them make you license the driver. So, you know, you're having to basically pay for each one that you put out. You have to pay for the drivers, or no support, or this or that.
And no support was big because there's only two of us. So
Yes.
you had to take into consideration, we don't have an IT guy or a tech guy.
Yeah, especially then, at those times too, when we were like really, really, really small, you know, it was just us. Like, there was just no way that we could support USB audio problems on top of that,
Right.
you know, and believe me, you know, there's always something weird. So eventually, the thing with Amanero was, you know, I always knew they existed. Everybody always talked about how great they were. And so I said, all right, Sherry, I'm going to hit up Amanero, you know, small operation. I'm just going to see what they say, you know, if they're interested in even working with us. And Dom from Amanero is the coolest guy ever, you know, very responsive, wonderful products. You know, I purchased one, you know, here's my credit card, let me buy one. We got it, we plugged it in, kind of hand wired it in, and, you know, tested it. It was awesome. I mean, you know, he provides the drivers. Everything was very, very flawless, like just very smooth.
And it has full DSD.
Yeah, it's full DSD, which was also awesome.
Okay.
You know, and so we ended up plugging that in, kind of getting it working. And it was easy to work with. And he was, I can't give him enough credit of just being, you know, just really cool dude.
Mm-hmm.
It's our Italian friends.
Yeah.
And yeah, we put together kind of a test board, and then, you know, we're like, okay, we're going to do this. We like him, you know, Sherry was like pumped. Everybody's pumped. We're like, you know.
And then other inputs he wanted to know, like,
oh, kind of veered off the USB. Yeah, and so I mean, so then that's when we also decided. So yeah, you don't have a JNOG to see, but we decided to add, or to keep the two front SPDIF inputs on the front and back. That was the other thing. So before, we had everything on the front.
Yeah, and I know some people have had issues with that at times.
Yeah, and let me jump in for a second. Yeah. The funny thing about designing products, especially when it's just Gino, it was never supposed to be in the front as something that people looked at. The DAC he designed to be in the back to be a pass-through.
Yes.
So the internet actually made it being a front-forward piece of gear.
Yeah, yeah. It was always supposed to be something you just threw behind your computer, plugged it in, and you kind of do like a pass-through, just like she said. So that's why
makes sense with the design, yeah.
Right. Yes. And it turned into like, hey, I'm stacking this on my desk and I have to feed wires in circles. And I'm like, oh, we didn't, you know, but that's why with the JNOG, we actually put the two on the front and the two in the back. And the two in the front are mainly for we still have a lot of customers that plug everything in the front, like the original ENOG 2. So, you know, we said, you know, we'll give them 4 inputs there, you know, and that way, you know, they could do that. And then, I'm looking at one right now. It's sad, but the DAC on my desk that I use for my sound card is just a board. It's like it's not even in a case. It's just a board with bright LEDs, and I'm like looking at it. Yeah, and that's when, you know, we wanted to keep the XLR outputs and, you know, the RCAs, and kind of, you know, that's that.
Mhm.
You know, but the USB was the big thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm certainly not asking so much about getting into things like AES or I2S or anything like that. That they're
Oh,
great to have when there's lots of space and when
right.
nothing else needs to be done first, sort of thing. But it was more the USB thing was what I was looking to cover off, because I know it's such a big element for most people these days. It's heavily required, at least in the headphone community. Maybe not as much in the speaker listening community, where they might be using CD transports and other sources. But I know for the pure headphone listeners like myself, it's so often tied to a computer of some description. So the USB is so
Right.
valuable.
I was going to say, one of the things that we have to consider, because we make everything in-house, is the ease of being able to make it. So the more parts you have, the more through-hole soldering there is.
Yeah, oh,
And,
yeah,
you know,
just-
so we do factor that in. Some people write us in and it'll be like, why don't you have A, B, C, D, E? And it's like, well, we can't really.
Yeah, you know, there's board
Do
real
that.
estate. There's like so many
Yeah.
things to that. Yeah, board, like you said, board real estate, you know, so you got to try to squeeze all these connectors in a thing that's, you know, this big, and it's
In time of making it.
Time of
It
making
can't, yeah, if you have a product that's going to take you 45 minutes to make each one with through-hole soldering, we can't do it.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Or the price is going to go through the roof.
Yes,
and then
yeah,
it changes
yes.
your entire model, doesn't it?
Right.
Correct, 100%.
I'm going to ask you, while we're talking about USB inputs, I'm going to ask you a question that I'm going to give you permission right now to say I'm not getting into that one.
No, ask.
Do you, as someone who's designed USB audio in a DAC, do you think, do you believe USB cables make any difference to the sound?
USB cables, I would say. Okay, so I'm gonna get in trouble for this
Yeah,
one from half of the world. So I would say USB cables, probably not. Okay, so when testing it, so people ask us this all the time. Okay, so this is like something, when we put it on an APX machine, so if we're going to quantify it by looking at graphs and blah, 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 boring. Generally, if the USB cable is noisy, that's the key, is like what kind of noise. So our particular design, we're not powering our board from USB. So if if the DAC is just plugged right in the USB, that can be a problem. I mean, you can generate noise from, your computers are horribly noisy, or whatever, generally you plug into your phone, there's a ton of noise. And based on how that can be, filtered and this and that on the board, it could affect, you can hear a buzz. How about that? You know what I mean? Maybe you hear 60 hertz. Well, in the US, you'll hear 60 hertz, 120 hertz. Generally, like on a DAC like ours, I usually tell people, buy the cable for the quality of the cable. So buy it so it doesn't snap on the end or something weird, So I always say this, like everything that's on our test bench on our APX machine, we have all those cables custom made, just so they're like rock solid, because we're constantly unplugging. And even those, we pay a lot of money for those cables. Even those, they break after, unplugging them 10 gazillion times, So yeah, my official answer is, if you're probably using USB, if it's being powered, buy a decent cable. That might help. But if the source is noisy, it's noisy. I don't think the cable's going to solve it. So sorry to the cable people.
No, it's all good. It's a bit of a journey I'm still on. I did a big review and a very, very flawed experiment a while back, looking at a very expensive USB cable. And I found that I was hearing, even when I did it blind, I was hearing differences.
Sure.
But of course, like you've alluded to, half the community came forward and said, rubbish, can't make a difference, blah, blah, blah. I'm currently, as we speak, I'm in the process of doing another round with some much more affordable USB cables. And I have to say, I'm finding it fascinating to do it, because I am having trouble working out if I can or can't hear a difference, which tells me it could just be my brain. But I'm also doing a test at the moment where I've started inverting the signals and putting them against one another to see if they cancel each other out, because if they're perfectly identical, they should cancel each other out. So
sure,
that's why I was curious from a designer's point of view, and I'll ask every designer I ever get a chance to talk to what their view is, because I still feel like there's stuff we don't fully understand in USB audio transmission. but I also don't have any clue what that is. So I'm always looking for anyone who can add a piece to that puzzle for me.
We're not going to ever knock any of that kind of thing anyways. I mean, it's part of the fun. You enjoy that. I mean, we enjoy doing weird stuff with like on our boards and testing. I mean, that's the whole fun of it. So, please test all kinds. I mean, I love hearing that kind of stuff, and if it sounds better. I mean, who am I to say, no, it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like I'm Mr. Bits and math. I can't, if you think it.
For us, it's great because people will buy a certain cable, for instance, and they'll write in and say, it sounds so much better. And I'm like, great, I have this knowledge now. So if somebody else asks, I'll say, okay, well, we have 10 people and they all think, so it's up to you. If you want to do it. We have some people that like it. We haven't heard a difference, but they have. Right. So there you go.
Yeah. If because it's gold, if the connector's gold or something and it makes you, it can be internal, you can see
That's
it
right.
and you think about it, you might have a positive feeling when you're looking at that. And if so, that's making your listening experience better. Then buy the cable, enjoy it. That's why we do this. I'm not, we don't
just audio.
Yeah, it's just audio. Yeah, exactly.
I like that. That's a really good way to put it. Yep. Yeah. No, that's great. And I certainly don't want to put you on the spot with that one. And appreciate that it is 100% just, we all have different opinions. We can't define any of these things exactly. So let's all explore it and have some fun in the process.
Exactly. Exactly. Enjoy this. We don't need to be fighting.
No, exactly. Complete change of pace here. And this is the one I wanted to write down before, because I suddenly realized I've never thought to ask, and I don't think I've seen on the website, so hopefully I'm not asking something that's slapped all over your website. The naming conventions for your DACs, where did that come from? What's it about?
Yeah. So our son renamed us all when he was little. And he called Gino Enog forever. And I was Irish. Our daughter was Archel. And so when he started making the original prototype, our son was saying, oh, that's the Enog's board. Enog is going in to work on audio. And it just kind of stuck.
Yes.
And one of the things we've learned in the process is when you name something, you have to check to make sure it's not copyrighted first. And so that kind of plays into things. And we've so far, because of our son, we've been able to name things correctly within our family, and we haven't had to worry about it. But it's always a joke because we're going to run out of names soon.
Yeah, that's actually true.
Yeah, then it's like, okay, my mom's name is Mickey. I'm not having Icky M. So.
But yeah, it's that simple, to be honest with you. Okay. It's that simple. No magic,
Yeah. The funny thing is we don't expect people to rename it. Like a lot of people call the Arkle.
Yeah.
And
okay.
we're like, Arkle, okay, but for what?
Yeah, we always use the soft sounds for everything, I guess. And now I'm thinking about this on this thing, like except for Enog, I guess they have the soft hard G's.
Anyway, so Archel, I've talked about this before. Our daughter has been called that forever. She made up her own holiday, and we have Archel Day, and she is so proud of that product. So it's going to be harder to discontinue the name. I
almost can't. Like we can't.
Yeah, we're kind of. Forever we'll have an Archel series.
The Archel 2, the Archel 3, the Archel 4,
right.
the Archel 5, yeah.
Exactly.
Archel 17, like right.
Yeah, she has a shirt that has her name on the back, and she's really, once audio shows come back and stuff, she's like, everybody has their own name on the back. And I'm like, yeah, we'll just do that, honey.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun. That's always nice to know these things. I think it helps to connect us even more to the product too. That's really cool to hear. Changing pace yet again. I've got a bit of a scattering here because I've, as we've gone along, I've sort of jumped around a bit based on where we're going, and this one doesn't link to anything we talked about. Sherry, you sent me some photos which I'll put up on screen while we talk about this, but one of the questions I had for you was with the simple casing and Perspex front and back paneling of your products, how does that work from an environmental interference point of view? Because I know that some products talk about the fact that they're in these beautiful machine aluminium chassis that have been carved out of a single block of aluminium, and it's all about keeping vibration and noise and all these things to a minimum. And then yours come along, they measure great, they sound great, and they're very, very simple. And I mean that in a good way. They're very, very simply made. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about what goes into making sure that works?
Yeah, so it's interesting because when we came out with the first one, which was the full Plexi, people were very, very opinionated on that, not realizing that we had already passed FCC and CE with it. And, you know, there was a lot of talk about his ability to be a design engineer with us doing such a thing. And that's why I started posting our pictures when we go through our certs. We get the bare board and we pass it with the bare board.
Yes.
And that's emissions, that's the whole bit. Then we put it in the Plexi, pass it with that, and then we put it in the case. So we actually go 3 rounds with all our products, and we pass and get certified throughout all 3.
Yes. So we answered that question a lot. There's actually people that we've read, you know, are like, there's just no way, you know, this is okay, that it's not shielded. So like she said, I mean, we put them in these big chambers, you know, when you go in the CE testing, or FCC for us, it's FCC/CE. But when we go into testing, they put them in these big chambers and you see if there's emitted radiation, you know, so is your device putting out? So then people ask, well, is it absorbing anything, you know? And we kind of look on that on the APX side. So when you're testing it, you know, you'd be able to see what kind of noise you're absorbing. You know, a lot of times that, again, for us in the US, it's at 60 Hertz in the wall. So your main, you know, your mains power, you know. But I mean, we've tested it both ways. We do it all the time. You know, we couldn't sell them if they were emitting like crazy, or if these boxes were, you know,
for overseas, we have to include all the CE paperwork.
Right.
So, and every time anybody outside of the US gets a product, that whole stack of certs from TUV or whichever one we use is all included in that.
I should probably jump in here just quickly and explain for any viewers that aren't aware of CE and FCC. So I'll talk about CE, but I believe they're basically the same. I know the research I've done on CE is that for a product to pass CE and be certified for sale in Europe, it has to be proven to both not affect other products around it and to not be affected by other products around it. So therefore, you know, if it can pass that sitting on a table, bare board, I love the photo of it's the bare board sitting on a piece of plastic on a wooden table or something similar. The fact that it can pass that in that state says that the casing's kind of irrelevant beyond cosmetics, isn't it?
Correct. And I'm not going to speak for other manufacturers. They may design their things around those cases being, you know, certain kind of shielding, but when we design it, we're designing it for that. You know, we're designing it to be a bare board, and we always kind of were like that because the original designs were in Plexi. And believe me, those first designs were not fun, and we were, you know, having to keep going back to the lab. We'll say that. Yeah. You know, like until
you don't get your money back.
No, you don't get your money.
So we've had quite a few, and then we learned a real big lesson, which is power supplies matter.
Oh man!
Because our first couple go arounds, and everybody asks, why do we use that power supply? Well, after a whole lot of different power supplies, that particular one from CUI passed with flying colors, and other products that had nothing to do with our board, but we were failing, and it was due to the power supply.
Yeah, correct. So when they do a test where they plug your power supply in, so they'll plug your board in your power supply into the wall. And just like you said, if it's feeding back, or even if the wall wart, you know, the little guy is feeding back into the grid, you know, so they had explained us that there's bigger issues in Europe than there are here with that particular, you know, maybe the way the wiring is, I don't know, but they gave us a long speech on that. And, you know, they show us all the machines, and they're saying, you know, we were just going through power supply after power supply after power. I mean, I couldn't believe we're buying these things from, like, you know, reputable vendors. It's not like we're just getting them, you know, off the internet blindly and fail. And we're like, oh, we got to find a power supply. So finally we found one from CUI that just passes every single time we go in. And we're like, we're keeping that. So, if we ever step
wow.
up if we step up the needs for power, they have, higher wattage supplies that we can use. But I mean, that was like surprisingly a huge pain.
Yeah,
I mean, that was like,
and one of the tests that we have to go through is with both, not just as your product, but connected the full, the both pieces together. And we were very happy to be able to finally find something that
worked.
Yeah, absolutely. Do the power supplies have any impact on the sound of the devices in your experience?
So no, so again, we get that question a lot because a lot of people want to buy a linear power supply. So we use a switching power supply, which it's funny, like in the audio world, that was like, you never, if you just search that, it's like a war zone on that one.
USB cables and power supply. That's like
power supplies, man.
Put on your flame protectant suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm staring at him closely as he's answering this question.
But yeah, no, so we, I like the switchers. They're small, they're compact, and like I said, I mean, you find one that's like emissions free, go with it. But we also use switchers on the board. So, we have to step up the voltage, and this is well known in the community that we do this. So, we have to step up the voltage, and so we basically have two switchers on there, that it's like double. Oh my goodness. But yeah, we found that it works for us. I've not seen any kind of, signature changes when we've plugged in linear supplies. So we have a bunch of bench supplies that we use, like when we develop everything, which are just, your typical, linear power supplies of a zillion amps, whatever. We have a bunch of them, and that's actually how we develop it. So at the very end, we then plug in our supply and test everything.
Okay, interesting.
Just to make sure. But like I said, with the amps, we kind of have now our power supply circuitry that's in our toolbox that we've developed over time that we just love, that works for us, and I'm sure other places have the same kind of idea. They got their things that work for them, don't change it, or you're going to have to go through the whole mess again of getting it right, so we have ours, and we like it. But I would say for us personally, I never really plugged in different supplies and really tested audio. We, most of the time when we're just using between a couple of linear supplies or that, we'll run it and look at frequency response graphs, and it's always the same. So we haven't really seen
people, again, just like cables, swear that they hear a difference, and
so be it. Enjoy it, man. I say,
explore it, play with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I've worked with customers in buying like bench power supplies. Like there's people like I've worked with who are buying like lab grade bench supplies that are really expensive, and they're into that. They like the little LEDs on it and stuff. So hey man, what do we buy? I work with them, show them, here's what you want to do. Here's how you want to plug this in. Here's how you want to wire up the barrel connector, and enjoy it, dude. Like I'm all for it. So.
That's very cool to hear. I'd never even thought about doing that. That's a whole other level of investment.
Man. Yes.
I'm getting close to running out of time because I do have to go and do my paid day job.
Sure.
But one of the things I wanted to ask you, and I think you've already given us a teaser of the DAC that's in the pipeline.
Yes.
But is there anything else new in the pipeline that you wanted to share with the viewers? Now, this will be coming out, this video might take me a week or so to put it out there. So let's say it's going to come out probably first week of March, second week of March. And I might even chop it up into chunks. So this might happen even a bit later into March. So by that stage, is there anything new in the pipeline that you'd like to share with viewers?
So sure, we always have stuff in the pipeline. We obviously have the new DAC. We're in development for another amp, possibly.
Yes.
And we have a lot of different kind of things going on. So in your country, in Australia, we're actually talking to somebody who's setting up a little shop, and we're exploring being able to have our products be more accessible to your area, maybe running it through him.
Yeah.
He'd be a reseller of ours, which some of your areas of Australia we can't ship to because it's just too remote. Our shipping company doesn't go there. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. He touched on his buddy Mike Z.
we got some stuff there.
Yeah.
We got some secret stuff there.
Excellent. We love secret stuff. That's great.
Believe me, she's stepping on my foot right now. No, but we have hopefully we'll talk more about it once we kind of know this is going to work. What he's working on. So I don't want to like get everybody, but he's working on a cool product that if it works out, it'll be a neat product. We have a couple other, different kind of things where we have in the pipe that are amplifier related. We obviously have the DAC related stuff,
That with the AKM, that kind of hurt too, because we were supposed to do DAC and then go into an amp.
Yes,
DAC.
yes.
Okay, DAC, hurry up.
And so we kind of did screw up some things. She's right, but yeah, in the future, I've definitely said Archel 3. Maybe some more inputs and outputs. I'm trying to like give things out before she really punches me in the leg. We've looked at just we've gotten requests from people to just say, hey, can you kind of do this or do that, and we're definitely working on it. We're working seriously a zillion hours. So we're working more hours in the week that are actually available to a human, I think. So, we're trying to get designs done and get prototypes, and just like anything else, I mean, you end up throwing away like 99% of everything you're like messing with until it's right. So, we do have a couple of things in the pipe, but the DACs, we're heavily right now focusing on getting the DACs out. So we're getting ready for production and testing. I mean, CE testing is going to be like very next thing. Right?
Hopefully in the next couple.
I'm looking at her. So, we're really focusing on like DACs and things like that right now. So trying to get everything like just together. It's just like ordering parts and all this mess, and then like in the meantime, like maybe between 9 and midnight, I'm like working on a design for like the Archel 3 or something, so yeah.
Ideally, we'll have 2, possibly 3 products released this year. That would be ideally.
Yes, I think that's fair. Very fair. Yeah. So,
excellent. So we know one of them's an amp, we know one of them's a DAC, and the third one's a surprise by the sound of it.
Yes, it is. Actually, I would say possibly 4.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I
okay.
just said that. Yeah. So
possibly 4. If things just stay smooth, we don't need any more fires.
Fires, pandemics. Who knows what can happen in a year?
Buy your fire extinguishers. Like no more fires. But yeah, if everything goes smooth, we're really hoping for 4 this year. Different things, and again, new Archel amp being one of them. I could definitely say that in a new, Enog, we don't even know, or JNOG, we don't even know what we're calling it right now. JNOG 2, I don't know. Everybody wants us to call it the J2. Maybe we'll call it the J2. I have no idea. But we're going to come up with that probably very last minute. I'd say the name for the DAC.
Usually we come up with it at CE testing.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, what's this going to be called? And that's
J2. Yeah, they write that down. We're like, yeah, that's it. But but it's definitely happening. So yeah, look for March, April. It would be April if things if we have some bumps. I'd say, but it's right now we're in the phase of testing and getting parts. We just have to source parts, and sometimes it takes forever. And so it's just a game you play. So.
Fantastic. That's brilliant, guys. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a
awesome.
fun little journey through this, and hearing all about some of the personal touches that make Geshelli products, and then also some of the more technical stuff's been really fascinating. So thanks for sharing it.
Thank you for having us.
No problem. It's great to have you on, and I hope we'll be able to share some of those new products with viewers as the year goes on. I'll obviously be in touch, and we'll see what we can arrange to share those reviews.
Sure. Yeah, this is cool. Let's talk again, man. This is super cool.
Love to. So what I normally do is I wait for the questions to bubble up in my head as I go along. Then I go, who can I fire these at? So I'll start building a new list, and we'll do it again. That'd be great.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Take care and stay safe.
Thank you. You too, guys.
All right, take care, man.
That's the end of my interview with Gino and Sherry. I hope you've enjoyed the series. I certainly thoroughly enjoyed talking to them. They're two more examples of the wonderful people we have in this industry. If you liked what you hear and you want to support Geshelli Labs by buying some of their products, I'll put a link down below so you can go to their website, check out what they already have, and stay tuned for their future products as they come. Remember to stay subscribed to the channel if you want to hear what the new releases are from Geshelli. I'll do my best to get them on the channel as close as I can to when they're released. For now though, happy listening, and I'll see you here next time on Passion for Sound.